What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so before I get into this video, I want to give a shout out to a couple more subscribers for showing love to the channel. Much respect to the brother Gerald Armstrong for the $10 donation via the Cash App. He says that Cosby imitation was funny. Jello pudding. Well, you see, the thing is, when you're talking like the Cars, you gotta slow down your rhythm of your voice, Then you gotta do the little thing with your mouth where you purse your lips, and then you just do the eye roll, and then you just talk a little bit down your throat like a Homer Simpson, but you don't quite go to the register. Then you just get the rhythm of the voice, and make sure that you go out and emphasize certain vowels and zobbles. But yeah, Cosby's one of the few ones I actually could do very well. That and Nixon, Reagan, a lot of people that people never heard of that's living right now, way before their time. Sammy Davis Jr., especially when I was a kid, my voice was a little bit higher. Clinton, Michael Jordan, Lyndon Johnson. I don't know, a couple other people. But much respect to you for showing love to the channel. Also want to give a shout out to Giovanni Giles for the donation to the channel. Did the Heat break script in 2020? Oh, you mean the bubble? Yeah. You never know. Maybe it was supposed to be Lakers, Celtics in 2020, but Jimmy Butler and company outplayed the Celtics and things didn't go to plan, so maybe that's why the powers to be sicked old Rachel Nichols on Jimmy Butler. Yeah. Put it on him. So he'd be zapped. He had that one great performance where he was gassed. Yes, sir. I think I've told this story before. There was one time, man, it was hot, July. The hottest time of the year. And I was working at a job, man, where they worked your ass, man. Like, we had to move furniture. We had to do all types of shit. We was maintenance people. Like it was the type of shit where we had to set up stage. I'm gonna get to the video in a moment, but I'm just talking a little shit right now. We had to set up on this particular day, it was a rock concert at the museum, and we had to set up for at least 500 people. So we had to put out 500 chairs. Now, mind you, it's 4 of us, so we gotta really do all that shit. Put out the chairs, the tables, set the stage up, put out the equipment, all that shit. Not their personal equipment, but equipment that they would need in assisting them setting their shit up. Not to mention the other shit that we gotta do around the museum, other setups and shit, right? Then we gotta take that shit down and help clean up after the fact. So I already knew we were going to be there until about 2 o'clock in the morning. My stupid ass decides before work that I want a little ass. So I'm still young, but not as young as I used to be. Man, I know how Jimmy Butler felt. He was playing a basketball game. But I'll put it like this. I had to call out the next day. So, yeah. Jimmy Butler, yeah, they I think that was set up and shit. But anyway, let me get to this video. So, I want to give a heartfelt apology to all Nikola Jokic fans, because I am a man that will admit when I'm wrong. I've always known that Jokic was good, but I thought he was mostly hype. But watching him in these playoffs, I am now convinced that Nikola Jokic is a great, great goddamn player. And at this point, I'm willing to admit that I was wrong about the MVP race. I was wrong. I still think Giannis is the most impactful big man. And I understand if people think that he didn't play enough games to qualify, because he did miss almost 20 games. But by default, because Giannis missed so many games, the MVP should have went to Jokic. And I'm sorry, man. I know people say it's a regular season award, and I get that. But I still believe that a player's prior playoff performances or productivity should at least weigh in some voters' minds when they're voting the MVP. Because there are some players, and they're annoying as fuck. There are some guys, because when you look at averages, right? When you look at scoring averages and rebounding averages, you're looking at what the player did on a daily basis per game, right? Well, on a game-by-game basis. But sometimes those numbers aren't always equal. There are some guys, there are some guys who, like a James Harden, will pad their numbers against mediocre teams. And we know this. They pad their numbers against mediocre teams, but the better teams, they kind of struggle against. Now, look, if you're playing against the best teams anyway, you're going to average fewer points, fewer rebounds anyway, right? Efficiency is going to go down. But some people, it's a more dramatic drop-off. That's why I have so much respect for a guy like James Worthy. Because James Worthy, who I think is extraordinarily underrated, he's one of the few players in the history of the NBA to not only see his scoring average go up during the playoffs versus the regular season, but his efficiency actually goes up in the playoffs. If you look at his numbers, it goes up. And in crunch games, critical games, my estimation of James Worthy is starting to really go way up, because I've been looking at some of these Laker games, especially from like 85 onward, and when you look at a lot of their closeout games, and I think I'm going to do a little bit of research and do a future video on this. In their closeout games, oftentimes James Worthy was their best player, and I think we're forgetting how good James Worthy was. But the thing is, James Worthy really played in the system. He rarely had plays called for him. Imagine if James Worthy was on a mediocre team and he had plays called for him. This is a guy that was averaging 18 to 22 points a game on a team that he rarely had plays called for him. Imagine if he was on a team back then like imagine if he was on the Kings in the 80s and the offense revolved around him. I'm convinced that James Worthy would have been second in the league in scoring behind Michael Jordan almost every year. But anyway, I apologize, man. Nikola Jokic this series is averaging a triple-double. And I think it's something like 24 points, 19 rebounds, 13 assists. 19 rebounds per game. I don't think he's going to keep that up. But the 19 rebounds per game, I mean, that's the most we've seen in a series since what? The days of Wilt Chamberlain? And just a phenomenal player, man. Phenomenal. And the one thing you see with Jokic that you don't see with AD is consistency. Consistency. Sometimes Jokic may not give you 30-some points, but you're always going to get 20 points, about 10 to 15 rebounds, and you're going to get 8 to 12 assists every game from Jokic, at the very least. And it's hard to guard this guy, because if you double up on him, he has shooters around him, as we can see in this Denver series. He has guys that can score the basketball. Now, the only thing that used to get on my nerves is when people act like Jokic doesn't have any help. That used to get on my nerves. Because I'm going to do a video about Jamal Murray after this. Because Jamal Murray is the truth. I've been telling people Jamal Murray is the best non-all-star player I've ever seen. Period. He's the best player I've ever seen that's not an all-star. And it was bullshit when people saying Jokic didn't have any help. That's the thing that used to really infuriate me. And also, you know, when people would say there may not be, that there's no bias at all when it comes to voting. That's not true. There is certain biases. But other than that, and that did kind of take over the whole thing and take it away from what these players are actually doing. When you actually look at what these guys are doing, I was wrong. Joel Embiid does what he does, which is in the postseason, he wilts. And I don't mean wilt in a good way. He, runs out of gas, whatever it is. His performance, his production just completely evaporates. When there's no award for him to be because there's no playoff MVP. You know what I'm saying? It used to be one in the ABA. There's no playoffs MVP in the NBA. The only thing the closest you get to that is finals MVP. So sometimes I wonder if Joel Embiid, you know what I'm saying, since he's not motivated by an award other than MVPs, he just lose interest. I don't know what it is, man. But anyway, just want to do this particular video because I want to be a man of my word, man. I was completely wrong about Jokic. Best center in the NBA.